What is up, you guys? John Brecco here, back at it with another video, part 2 of the NFL divisional round. I had to cut last video short because my phone was actually dying in the middle of the video. And what I want to say is one more time, let me give a shout out to my cat Silver for walking around during the video. If you guys actually want to see, that's not going to happen this time because they're both actually sleeping right now. You guys seem to like my cats, so unfortunately they will not be walking through the screen, but I just figured I'd show you guys since you guys seem to enjoy the cat videos in the shorts. Most of them do really well. So, I appreciate the love of my cats. I appreciate you guys for continuing to subscribe to the channel. Remember, our goal is 500 subscribers by the end of April and 1,500 subscribers by the end of 2024. So definitely leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe as you guys have been doing. I appreciate all the support that our live streams, our videos, since we've been posting more of them lately, and our daily shorts have gotten. And I just want to take the time to, as always, say thank you so very much for all that support that you guys give us. So with that being said, let's get into the topic of the video. Part 1 of the video covered the matchups between the Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens, in which the Ravens won 34-10. And the other matchup we covered was the Green Bay Packers versus the San Francisco 49ers, where the 49ers pulled off a narrow victory with a clutch drive from Brock Purdy that was capped off by a 6-yard run by Christian McCaffrey with 1 minute and 7 seconds left in the ball game, where they went on to win 24-21. So I will not be talking about that any further in the video. If you guys want to hear some of my thoughts where I talk about Christian McCaffrey at one point, Brock Purdy at another, where I talk about Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud, Lamar Jackson, D'Amico Ryan a little bit, and the team that Lamar has around him, look at the last video that I posted in my pre-recorded videos if you want to see that. I will not be talking about it in this video because it's a 20-minute video. You guys don't need me to go on that spiel again for 20 minutes. So that will be all I'll be saying about those two matchups. With that being said, where we left off, the San Francisco 49ers have a tough matchup ahead of them. No one would have expected a tough matchup out of this team a couple of years ago, but head coach Dan Campbell, the head coach of this team that I will be talking about first, has flipped the perception of this franchise completely on its head in his 3 years there. Coming into this game in the last 67 NFL seasons, this team had one playoff victory. One in 57 years, since 1957. That singular playoff victory was more than 30 years ago. It was in 1991. It was in the divisional round, and it was a game where this team went to the NFC Championship game, making this just their second NFC Championship game in NFL history. They have a real shot of making their first Super Bowl appearance in NFL history. I talked about a team like this still being in the playoffs earlier. If you remember me talking about the Detroit Lions, and by earlier I mean last video, you would be right. That's right, the NFC Championship game takes place between the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. What makes this matchup so interesting, especially to me, is that we expect the 49ers to make it here, right? They've made it to the NFC Championship game for the last 5 seasons and even made it to a Super Bowl in one of those seasons. That was Super Bowl 54 against the Kansas City Chiefs. And even though they blew a 2-possession lead halfway through the fourth quarter, they're consistently one of the final few teams in the playoffs. At some point, you realize that's not an accident. It's not an accident to always be in the mix. They may not win, but they're always in the mix. They're always just about to get over the hump. This could be one of the years that they do that, but we'll see. We expect them to get this far, though. The expectations for the Detroit Lions are anything but championship games. And what do I mean by that? Well, in the season before Dan Campbell became the head coach of the Detroit Lions, Matthew Stafford was in his final season with the organization. Remember, the Lions drafted him in the very first round of the very first pick in the very first round of the 2009 NFL draft. They expected to succeed with him, and this was after their 0-16 season, by the way. They went 2-14. They had some success. He had a few playoff appearances, but was never able to win in the playoffs. He was in his final season with the organization, playing through injury, which only amounted to a 5-11 record that year. This was the year Matt Patricia was fired as the Lions head coach, and at the end of this season, Matthew Stafford decided to part ways with the Lions because he got tired of the mediocrity, let's be honest, that he became associated with. Being 0-3 in the playoffs in his time there, and being looked at as the greatest quarterback to never have postseason success. He didn't even have a win in the playoffs. He had no postseason success whatsoever before moving teams. Dan Campbell took over this team about biting people's kneecaps, and people laughed at him for it. And let's be honest, nobody's laughing now, but people were laughing back then because nobody was scared of the Lions. The Lions have fought for what they've gotten this season every step of the way. They fought for this when they went winless through Dan Campbell's first 11 games coaching the organizations. It was looking so bad that season. Dan Campbell still, to this day, has under a 500 record as a head coach in the regular season. Excuse me. The Detroit Lions fought for this when they went 3-2 in their last 5 games of Dan Campbell's inaugural season of 2021. They fought for this after a 1-6 start in 2022, and even though they failed to make the playoffs at the end of the season, they knocked out Aaron Rodgers, an Aaron Rodgers Packer-led team, out of the playoffs in Rodgers' very last game with the organization when they had absolutely nothing to play for. Nothing at all. They weren't about to get a playoff spot. They were eliminated from the playoffs the week prior. They had nothing to play for in this situation other than pride and knocking another team out of the playoffs, which they were able to do. And in the process, Aaron Rodgers unceremoniously left Green Bay after that loss to go to the New York Jets. And as of right now, he's only played 4 snaps for that team because he went out with an injury in the season opener against the Bills. But those are topics for other videos. With that being said, they also fought their way, the Detroit Lions now, to a 12-5 record this season, and through the Los Angeles Rams, current Detroit quarterback Jared Goff's old team, and you guessed it, Matthew Stafford's current team. Don't get me wrong, Matthew Stafford did the right thing. He ended up winning a Super Bowl with the organization, which was in his very first year there. Still poetic justice, though. The Lions fought their way through Baker Mayfield, who's had a career resurgence this year, winning the Tampa Bay Buccaneers locker room over, showing his chemistry with Mike Evans, and leading his second team into the playoffs and a playoff victory. Remember, when he went to the playoffs with the Browns, he did get a playoff victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's not act like Baker Mayfield's a scrub, that he hasn't had success in the NFL. He had more success before Matthew Stafford left the Lions. So let's be clear. They say anything can happen on any given Sunday. The problem is the Lions right now don't need any given Sunday. They can still beat anybody. Detroit has a shot to do something that they have never done, be a part of the Super Bowl, and win. Now we have to talk about the opponent for the Baltimore Ravens, who played in Sunday night's game and therefore were the final team to make it into the conference championship round. They're a team that is even more familiar with the conference championship game than the San Francisco 49ers. Instead of 4 out of the last 5 conference championships, this team is heading to their 6th straight AFC championship game. They're 3-2 in these AFC championship games, and they have won 2 out of the 3 Super Bowls that they'd appeared in. These 9 games are as follows. By the way, just to put this out there, the record for AFC championship games appearances is 8. It was set by Tom Brady and the New England Patriots between the 2011 and 2018 seasons. So that's the current record. I actually thought 6 conference championship appearances was an NFL record before I started doing research for this video. I thought the record was set by the Oakland Raiders in the 70s, but after doing some research, I realized that that was wrong and that the New England Patriots do hold the record for 8 straight, which I really shouldn't be surprised about, but I thought at some point Tom Brady missed an AFC championship game at some point. So forgive me for not memorizing every championship game in NFL history. But the 9 games in the AFC championship and the Super Bowl that the Chiefs have been in over the past 6 years are as follows. An AFC championship loss to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, who, as I said, at the time were in their 8th straight AFC championship game. The Patriots went on to beat the Los Angeles Rams by a score of 13-3. An AFC championship win over the Tennessee Titans, and their first Super Bowl win in 50 years over the 49ers. An AFC championship victory over the Buffalo Bills, which they did this time as well, and we'll get to that. Followed by a loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by a score of 31-9. One of the worst losses, if not the absolute worst loss, this team has taken in a 6-year time span. If everybody remembers, the Kansas City Chiefs actually struggled for the first half of the season that year, and I think losing this game really had something to do with that. I think it had an effect on their mental, and I think it took some time to overcome that. I think this team was too talented not to, but, they struggled for a little bit, and I would be just remiss to disqualify this as a possible reason for that. So, with that being said, the next game was an AFC championship loss to Joe Burrow that season, actually, and the Cincinnati Bengals, who went on to lose to Matthew Stafford and the Rams, who got the victory with a clutch fourth-quarter drive and a defensive stop towards the end of the game, getting the victory they tried to get 3 years earlier. An AFC championship rematch followed up last year's matchup. By the way, the Kansas City Chiefs were 0-3 going into this game against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They started calling it Burrowhead, and I think even the Cincinnati mayor got into it, which the Chiefs didn't like that. But that was a lot of nice football trash talk, and I very much enjoyed it. But this time, the Bengals finally fell to this team who went on to defeat the Eagles. I've never been so sad looking at confetti, by the way. Let me just put that out there. Who couldn't get a defensive stop of their own when they needed to, and allowed the Chiefs to run out the clock, falling ultimately to a score of 38-35. Of course, we're talking about the team with Patrick Mahomes, one of the greatest talents, if not the greatest talent at the quarterback position in NFL history. In my opinion, the greatest tight end in NFL history, Travis Kelce. Their coach, who could possibly go down as a GOAT himself once his career is over, Andy Reid. Personally, Bill Belichick is looked at as the GOAT, but I think with everything Andy Reid has accomplished as a head coach, not only in Kansas City, but in Philadelphia as well, with all the sustained success Andy Reid has had, this is his 11th conference championship game appearance. I don't know how many have been, in more than that. I think it's very few. It might just be Bill Belichick. But I think Andy Reid's resume as a head coach is nothing to sneeze at. And if you want to put somebody in the GOAT conversation, I absolutely think you should put in Andy Reid. Again, we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. What's been uncharacteristic about the Chiefs this season, is that for most of this season, we've seen them struggle on the offensive side of the ball. The reason for this is because their receiving core has been dropping passes all season long. I think they have 30-something drops on the entire season, which isn't something we usually look at for the Kansas City Chiefs. The most flagrant example that I can think of is when Kadarius Toney dropped 4 passes in the season opener against the Lions. Again, though this was all season long, what has been outstanding has been their defense led by Chris Jones and defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. However, as a team, the Chiefs have done enough to keep winning in the playoffs so far, but Lamar Jackson is about to win his second MVP. Lamar Jackson has weapons, plus a defense, as we talked about earlier. Things are set up for Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens to win, but that hasn't been enough to stop the Chiefs in the past. They came back against the 49ers from a double-digit lead halfway through the fourth quarter in their first Super Bowl win. In all three games, actually, in the playoffs, they were down by double digits that year. They were down by more than 20 against the Texans in the divisional round, and they won by 20. And they were down by double digits against the Titans in the game after as well. So this is a team that can win when it's not necessarily set up for them to. So I just want to put that out there. And before we end the video, I will give you guys my predictions on who will win both of these games. Again, the Ravens are set up to win. This was so tough for me. It really, really was. Because, again, they're set up to win, but I can't bet on Patrick Mahomes. I just can't do it. Like, as much as I try, the only time that I bet against them is when they play the Eagles, and that's for bias reasons, clearly. You guys have seen that I'm an Eagles fan. You see me wearing my hoodie and a lot of my shorts, which, shout out to my mother-in-law. That's a comfy-ass hoodie. Holy shit. When they don't play, I root for the Chiefs. And the reason why is because of the fact that Andy Reid was a head coach for the Eagles before getting a job with the Chiefs. And I appreciate everything Andy Reid did for us, getting us to 5 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl. We didn't win, but this team led by Andy Reid was great a lot more often than it wasn't. And I think that deserves a lot of appreciation from Philly fans and Philly faithful alike. So let me just put that out there. And he probably bought his players a lot of cheeseburgers too, which says a lot about him. I love me a good cheeseburger. I will say this, though. Despite the fact that I can't bet on Patrick Mahomes, if any team can beat this year's Chiefs, it's this year's Baltimore Ravens. That's just the absolute truth. Who's going to win between the Lions and the 49ers? Well, remember, Deebo Samuel might be out for this game, as we talked about in the last video. By the way, my first video, I just got a notification, is up now. Correct me if I'm wrong about Deebo Samuel not being in the game. I forget if he was or if he wasn't, but I know he was injured, and they're obviously going to have him try to come in this one, but we don't know if he will yet. But who's going to win between the Lions and the 49ers? The 49ers did lose 3 straight games without Deebo Samuel. Brock Purdy looked significantly less confident. I think with conditions not being ideal for the 49ers in last game, as we talked about, that will give them possibly more confidence to go into this one. And, the Lions, the mindset is going to be, they didn't come this far to only come this far. They're going to bite your kneecaps after all. Nobody's laughing about that anymore. They understand that you will actually get your kneecaps bit off and maybe your entire leg in the process. So, again, I do think the 49ers win, but we'll see. The Detroit Lions could absolutely go to their first Super Bowl. That is not without the realm of possibility. And without Deebo Samuel, I would actually say the Lions would go on to win. And with him compromised, I think it greatly reduces their chances anyway. So, again, the 49ers may not have everything in their favor to be set up to win, but if they're going to be champions, this is the time that they're going to do it. They have somebody who's a good quarterback. I don't know about great yet, but I believe he's more than a system quarterback. I believe he's more than a game manager, and I believe he showed that last week. And again, I think the 49ers do win. I think the Detroit Lions have a big upside, a bright future, and they've been able to show that every year since. But, I mean, we'll see. That one's a pick 'em. It really is. I think, you know, you can't really bet on Patrick Mahomes. That's just me personally. But the game between the 49ers and the Lions, I think the 49ers win, as I said again, but I do think this is a pick 'em. So I wouldn't blame anybody for picking the Lions. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all of you for your support. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe as we talked about earlier if you haven't already. Our goal, once again, is 500 subscribers by the end of April and 1,500 subscribers by the end of the year. And before I go, I just want to say that in my next video, I want to ask you guys a question to see what you want to see from me going forward. I think you guys do like the sports videos. I think, you guys like more of our shorts than you don't. But I want to address that question with our audience going forward about what you guys want to see, because obviously I like football and I've shown that, but I've also shown that I like other things as well. I've also shown a lot of different aspects about my life. So I do want to ask that, and I'll be trying to put some things together to write down and just really have ideas for what I'm going to talk about going forward. But I do want to hear your guys' thoughts in that next video. So in the meantime, help us get to our goals. We can't make them happen without you. I can't wait to do another video for you guys. I've really been enjoying myself and the way our channel has been grown, and it kind of takes me out of, the mindset of the daily grind when, I do things, because I'm a regular person. I have a job and bills just like everybody else. So I appreciate you guys. I can't wait to do another one. Until then, deuces.